The judge leading the Grenfell inquiry has said it would be wrong for him to say whether a panel of relatives and survivors should be set up to help him. Those affected by the fire have called for greater involvement, claiming Sir Martin Moore-Bigg has no real experience of the issues affecting their community. Well, speaking on day 2 of the procedural hearing, the former judge said Theresa May must decide on that issue. Reya El-Salahi has been following the day's events. Reya.
The second day of these procedural hearings here in Holborn today. The probe into the disaster, which comes as members of the Grenfell United group, bereaved families, handed a petition into Downing Street today, signed by more than 16,000 people, calling for new members added to the Grenfell inquiry to make it more representative of the diverse West London community. Now, Karim Masili lost his uncle in the fire and was among those in Westminster earlier today.
We want to be seen that we're working with this public inquiry. We don't want to sort of boycott it or have none of the families or the survivors participate in this inquiry, but we just don't feel like we're being listened to. We don't feel like we're being heard. We don't feel like our concerns are going to be acknowledged to a certain extent throughout the process of this inquiry, and we feel by this panel it's going to restore that confidence and faith back in. We want to work with the public inquiry and the government to get to the truth and make sure this never happens again. North Kensington, our community, is a very diverse community. I want to just stress that we're not requesting that we are on the panel or anybody from the families, survivors, or it has to be impartial. So we're not asking for anybody from our community to be on this panel, but you know, if you look at all the representatives of the corporations and even the representatives of us, the solicitors, do we think that they understand us and they will be able to acknowledge our concerns? You know, all we're asking for is a panel of people that understand people that grew up in a community like this, understand what it's like to live in social housing or live in a council estate or a tower block. It doesn't have to be anybody that represents the same religious or ethnic background. We're not talking about that. It just has to be people that understand us, that's all. And other inquiries have had this. We lost 71 lives on that night. And, 71 way too much. And we can't let them be forgotten. We can't let justice not happen, If there's no justice, it's injustice. We need to be participating in this inquiry. They need us to participate in this inquiry. It's our inquiry, and we need to make sure this never happens again.
After sitting in on the launch of the inquiry here in Holborn yesterday, Emma Dent-Coad today attended Westminster to lend her support to bereaved families and called for proper representation on that panel of the diverse West London community.
Well, I will do anything I can really to support the survivors and bereaved families of Grenfell fire. This is hugely important to them, to get proper representation and to be heard right at the top. They're not being listened to. I sat in the launch of the inquiry yesterday in a side room, and the bit of the room that I was looking at on the television was all white men, and I found that really depressing after everything people have been saying for months and months, that they do not understand about the tone of what is done and how it's done and how it's presented. This is our fear, is that the people who are actually running the inquiry and all the experts do not understand the background and the community and what has happened here. That, plus being able to actually ask questions at the inquiry, which is very important, that their lawyers can pose questions. At the moment, they can't. So it's like we're being kept out, the community being kept out.
With that in mind, what are the concerns that you're hearing if these demands, if these requests being made today aren't met?
Well, that people will say that people already fear it's going to be a whitewash. And this will be confirmed if this isn't listened to. I mean, 16,000 signatures may not be very many in 5 days, but it's an awful lot of people who are as concerned as we are.
Kensington MP Emma Dent-Coad lending her support to the petition. Meanwhile, no official response from the Prime Minister, Theresa May, but Kensington and Chelsea Council say they have no objection to the request.